Hello, everyone. Welcome to this special council meeting. Earlier tonight, we opened the meeting for council to discuss a non-planning matter, and now at the public planning meeting portion of the agenda. So we'll start by asking for a motion to reconvene, please, at 6:30. Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Drodge. All those in favor? That is carried. I'd like to advise that this meeting is being live streamed, audio and video recorded, and shall form part of the record, which will be retained in accordance with the town's retention bylaw. For more information about that collection, please contact the clerk's office. I'll now ask Councillor Drodge to provide the land acknowledgement statement.
Thank you, Worship. The town of Innisfil acknowledges that the town of Innisfil is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. The town also acknowledges that this is the land of the traditional territories of the First Peoples of Turtle Island. It is shared between the Anishinaabe peoples of Beausoleil First Nation, the Chippewas of Rama First Nation, and Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation, and we thank them for their generations of stewardship. This meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people, and as settlers, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. The town acknowledges the forced sacrifices that are the foundation of Canadian society today. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit.
Thank you, Councillor Drodge. We have one planning application before us this evening for information and public consultation purposes, and it is also being recommended for council consideration on tonight's agenda. Can I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as circulated, please? Moved by Councillor Waters and seconded by Deputy Fowler. All those in favor? That is carried. Are there any disclosures of interest on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, tonight's application concerns a proposed amendment and Class 3 permit to the Community Planning Permitting System, our Shore Bylaw number 062-17 for 2243 Crystal Beach Road in the town of Innisfil. We'll start with a presentation from staff and the consultant regarding the application. Then we'll have an opportunity for public consultation where we'll hear from members of the public. All speakers will have 5 minutes to ask your questions or express your comments, and then staff will respond where possible. Should anyone need to speak a second time after everyone's had an opportunity to identify an issue that has not already been raised or to receive clarification, they'll be given an additional 5 minutes. With the number of people in the audience today, I don't think that is going to be a problem. After all members of the public have provided comments, council will have an opportunity to ask any questions or provide comments, and then council will consider the recommendation. Should any member of the public watching on the live stream wish to comment, they can email the clerk's services. These comments will be provided to council and town staff and taken into consideration before council makes a decision this evening. The email will be listed on the PowerPoint during the meeting and also is available on tonight's agenda, which can be found on the town's website. We'll now hear from the clerk, Patty Toma, on how public notice of this meeting was provided.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. In accordance with Section 1.6.4 and 1.32 of the CPS bylaw, notice for this public meeting was provided by placement of signs on the street and lake frontages of the property on August 27, 2025. Notice was circulated to all landowners within 120 meters of the subject lands on August 26, 2025, and to all required review agencies on August 27, 2025. Information and materials respecting the application were also posted on the town's Get Involved page.
Thank you, Clerk Toma. Has any correspondence been received by clerk services concerning this item?
Thank you, and no correspondence has been received by the clerk's office regarding this application. As well, members of the public may provide comment or register their interest regarding this item during this meeting or up until council makes a decision by contacting the clerk's office.
Thank you. We'll now hear from our presenters regarding this application. First, Ingrid Lee, Development planner for the town of Innisfil will provide a high-level summary of the application. Then Cynthia DeFern, planner from IPS Consulting, will provide further planning context on behalf of the applicant. Ingrid, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Worship. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council staff, and members of the public. The purpose of this application is to consider a proposed CBPS bylaw amendment for a land municipally known as 2243 Crystal Beach Road to facilitate a lot severance. The applicant is seeking a CBPS bylaw amendment for one variance, and also seeking a Class 3 for a total of 9 variances. I will defer to the applicant to introduce the variances in detail. We note that the Class 3 permit is subject to council approval, but a public meeting is not required for the Class 3 permit. The subject land is located within the Alcona primary settlement area, fronted onto Crystal Beach Road. Surrounding land use are generally residential in nature. So this slide highlights the criteria will be reviewed by staff. Staff have reviewed the application against the evaluation criteria required under section 1.10.1 and 1.10.2 of the CPPS bylaw 058-25 for a CPPS bylaw amendment and a Class 3 permit, and have determined that the proposal meets these criteria as detailed in the staff report, the SR-1330-25 on today's agenda. So we have received a comment from the Advil First Nation dated September 2nd, 2025, recommends an archaeological assessment is completed. Staff are recommending approval this evening. However, if there are questions from the public or council that can't be answered tonight, council could defer consideration to a future date. At this point, I will hand it over to the applicant who will go over the detailed concept.
Thank you. To build on this presentation, we wanted to provide an overview with some more context for your consideration. Our goals in this application are to separate the existing oversized dwelling on the property, which currently has 2 kitchens, 6 bedrooms, 5 full bathrooms, and 2 driveways, by removing the around 1 meter by 2 meter hallway here, as shown here in yellow, in order to separate the 2 dwellings. We're seeking the permits and bylaw amendment to later pursue a consent to sever to separate the 2 dwellings. And vegetation will be planted at the waterfront yard and between the 2 buildings to create a buffer and better align the buildings with the CPP bylaw and Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority shoreline requirements. Here you can see a general overview of our proposed concept. As I said before, the existing hallway to be removed is shown here in yellow. The existing dwellings, which will be separated, are shown here in purple. Not pictured here is the significant structural and aesthetic difference between the 2 buildings. They do look like 2 distinct dwellings already. These dwellings have existed on the site for over 30 years, and the site has demonstrated functionality. This was before, notably, the CPP bylaw or the previous CPPS bylaw came into effect, rather. Many of the proposed permits and bylaw amendment are considered grandfathered into current policy, but with any Planning Act application, we must align the lots with the current policy framework to the extent possible. The bylaw amendment is shown here in red. It is for the existing sauna's waterfront setback, and the remaining Class 3 permits are for deficient lot area for both lots, decreased lot frontage for both lots, decreased waterfront yard setback of the deck, decreased northern interior side yard setback of the sauna, increased front yard setback for the dwelling on proposed Lot 2 to the south, and decreased shoreline buffer revegetation and naturalization area on proposed Lot 1. Please note that though we require a permit for that, it is still a significant improvement on the existing conditions, given the current state of the waterfront yard is hardscaping and sand. The only other changes associated with this application are to remove or revise some structures, including decks, porches, and shed footprints, in order to allow for more space between the two buildings. As mentioned by the town previously in this presentation and by the staff report, the proposal was compared to the following requirements of the CPP bylaw and was found to meet all of the requirements and criteria listed here. The full justification is provided in the planning justification report submitted as part of this application by IPS. To conclude, the proposed CPP bylaw amendment and Class 3 permits seek to facilitate a future consent to sever application on the subject lands on an existing residential lot. This is the first step in the process of severing the existing lot, after which we will be pursuing a consent to sever with the Committee of Adjustment. The site has existed for over 30 years and demonstrates functionality. And though one bylaw amendment and 9 Class 3 permits are requested, the removal of the hallway itself is a minor change. Overall, the proposal will improve upon existing conditions. No impacts are anticipated on surrounding neighbors or land uses or Lake Simcoe. We've reviewed all of the comments associated with this application and we have no issue with them. And it is our opinion that the proposal is consistent and in conformity with all levels of planning policy and constitutes good planning. Thank you very much for your time. Myself and my colleague Nick will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. We'll now hear from members of the public who have questions regarding this matter. I understand that no one has registered to speak virtually, so I will call on those in the audience here at the town who wish to provide comments to come forward to the podium and state their name for the record. Anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'll now ask the clerk if there's any emails that have been received during the meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. No emails have been received by the clerk's office today.
Thank you. And now we'll go to members of council. Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. Just a couple of questions more out of interest than really being opposed or in favor of the proposal. So obviously the two distinct houses will need their services separated. What's the procedure to do that when it comes to where the pipes go in and when the wires come in and think in that
Mr.
matter?
Scarrett?
Through your worship, to answer council's question, yes, very good question. We, through the process of the CPPS permit, are required to show municipal servicing for each structure. Through our civil consultant, we've provided those plans to the building department and they've verified that they meet town standards and will be hooked up should council approve this CPPS permit tonight and subsequent Committee of Adjustment severance application.
Thank you for that. I'm also kind of curious about the history about when the second building was put up, and there's a lot of square footage there. Has the owner owned it for a considerable amount of time? Just maybe a little bit more of the history of that, because it is very unique how that very distinct building was there and the connection with that small hallway.
Through your worship, may I ask if staff can put up the presentation to the illustration to show some visuals? Is that possible? If we just go back to like the site plan Yeah, that one's great. So I can't verify that when these structures were constructed, but it has been some time ago based on aerial photography, and the oldest structure is the smaller one on lot 2. That is significantly older than the northern structure on lot 1. That one, if you go to a street view, you'll see that that structure, the facade has been updated. So I'm assuming that that one is newer than the previous one, and it is unknown of when that hallway was constructed to merge those properties together. So either that was through the construction of the northern dwelling in conjunction with an expansion to the southern structure, historic structure, but through the client's wishes, they're looking to separate those structures and remove that hallway. It is unknown of when that occurred.
Thank you. I guess it doesn't matter, but is the intent to sell one of the properties, or is there or the family's going to live in both of them, or is there a plan there?
Through your worship, to answer council's question, both structures, I believe, are occupied by residents right now that are currently renting. It is unknown if these properties will be put up for sale. As you can imagine, the current market for sale of properties is unstable, but there is always the possibility of one or both of these lots becoming a purchase for a future homeowner.
It's an interesting way to get more houses, more homes in the town by splitting them in half. So maybe we can make that part of our strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ices. I can tell you that this address was one of the problem short-term rentals that we had in this area at one point. So that might have something to do with why that hallway was there, but I'm just speculating. Councillor Drodge.
Thanks, Your Worship. This question is for staff. I'm assuming they would have only paid one set of development charges originally, and then the secondary dwelling that came later probably would have been DC exempt because it was existing, like it would be an addition? Or how would that work if we did sever this? Would one of those lots acquire DC charges even though the building's already built?
Through your worship, essentially, as far as our records show, the original structure was from 1930, and then there was an addition put onto it, and the homes were connected in 2005. The permit was issued for the addition to the north. So it was basically treated as an addition.
So if we did permit a severance or for them to move forward towards a severance, would DC charges apply to that new property, even though the building's existing?
Through your worship, our understanding of staff is yes, DC charges would apply.
Thank you. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. A few questions, if you don't mind. In terms of, you had mentioned in services that both lots are going to have their own utilities. Has in-service, do they have the allocation for the extra lot? I assume there's only one service now, and they'll have to get a second service for one of the buildings. So as in-service, do they have the allocation for that?
Through your worship, as far as I understand, that through the permitting process and comments received from the building department, that allocation is not a concern.
Okay, thank you. My second question is, like the standard area for a lot is 1,400 square meters. This is 446 for both of them. How does that compare to other lots along the beach there? It seems like a relatively small lot, so I'm just kind of comparative.
Through your worship, these, through consultation with staff through the pre-consultation process, we've reviewed the potential severance of these lands and the CPPS merits of that, and have verified that other lots in the area are of similar size. if any, this lot is actually an anomaly as
Okay.
it currently sits.
Okay, thank you. And one final question. Normally, when we're talking about what, that lots have certain coverage in terms of buildings, usually is around 35%. I assume since there's no request for a variance here, that it meets the current standard?
Through your worship, yes, it meets the current standard for lot coverage, and most importantly, an item to note here, because we're going through the CPPS new permit system, is the shoreline area will be drastically enhanced with vegetation and protection features, specifically on the northern lot, Lot 1. I think it's currently around 4% of that area is vegetated, and we're bumping that up to about 46. So through consultation, substantial changes have been made with that waterfront area to remove hardscaping and improve protection of the shoreline.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, we'll now go to the recommendation to consider this application. Could I ask for a mover and a seconder for the recommendation? Deputy Fowler, Councillor Constantine, any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Council thanks everyone for their participation, or lack thereof. And we will now go to the confirming bylaw for adoption and adjournment. And so a mover and a seconder, please, for the confirming bylaw and adjournment at 6:51 p.m. Moved by Councillor Zanella, seconded by Councillor Waters. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everyone, for coming out, and have a good rest of the evening.